Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I see people filtering in, and I'll give you guys some time to get your lunch and get settled in. First, I want to say thank you for joining me for Medicine Grand Rounds and the State of the Department. This is potentially the most important talk I give every year, and I'm just very grateful to see a lot of leaders in the room, a lot of residents and students, a lot of staff in the room as well. So thank you all for being here in person. And thanks to all of you online. I know there's many of you watching as well. I appreciate it. So I'm going to divide my talk today in three sections as I did last time. I'm going to tell you about the year in the past, where we are today in the department, and I'm going to spend quite a bit of time talking about the future this time around, because there's a lot that lies ahead of us that I want you to know about. So let me begin with the past and start with the beginning of the year this year. And boy, was it a beginning of the year. So for those of you that may recall, I sent several emails out about legislative challenges that came our way from the Colorado government. These were ostensibly labeled as sort of approaches to reducing healthcare costs, but as with many things that happen with policy, there's often unintended consequences. These came in the form of House bills, so the one that you might recall is House Bill 1215. This was a bill aimed at reducing hospital facility fees. These are those fees that get tacked on to patient bills when they're seen in the outpatient setting. And while that aspiration of reducing healthcare costs is terrific, the challenge with this bill was that it didn't take into account the fact that this was sometimes the only way for us to support those clinics. So in words of our leaders, Liz Concordia and Dean Riley, these fees are the only reimbursement for these services, and we are concerned that this prohibition will force some of our primary care clinics to close, reduce access to telehealth and preventative health services. That was not an unfounded concern. The estimated impact of these bills was $1 billion to our system alone. If that wasn't bad enough, along came House Bill 1243. This was a second bill aimed specifically at defining what counts as community benefits. So for those of you at Anschutz, our biggest community benefit is the School of Medicine and all the work that we do in research and education, and this bill sought to say that was not an appropriate use of those resources. And we responded, we being the dean and the health system in unison, saying final decisions on what counts should remain with the nonprofit hospitals and their boards. And the impact for this was approximately $300 million, and almost all of it would be directed towards the School of Medicine and the departments in the School of Medicine. This is not happening in isolation. Healthcare is no longer the business it used to be. So this is a chart from Kaufman Hall. They do a lot of national surveys of where things are in the financial markets for healthcare systems. And in April of 2021, things didn't look so bad. We were at about a 3% margin on average for health systems. And then there was this nosedive. And where we are today is we're barely scraping by across the country as hospitals and health systems face what's happening here. What happened in that slide? There were three drivers there. The first was, as you all know, our contract labor expenses increased dramatically. This is the travelers and all the workforce that we were trying to bring back to hospitals and health systems. There was a rapid increase in non-labor expenses, largely on pharmacy and supplies as things revved up after COVID. And we saw this at the beginning, a slow rise in our inpatient volumes, our operative volumes, and our outpatient volumes as well. We were not immune to this at the University of Colorado. This is what happened here to our UC Health System operating margins. I long for the days of FY 2019. I was not here then, but those double-digit margin days are long gone. Our projected margin this year is 4.8%. And I will tell you, based on the last few months, it's looking perhaps we may not make that as well. This has led our hospital and system partners to put together a number of tactics to help with this shortfall, including things that we've all felt. So there's the good news. Let's optimize revenue. Let's think about how we maximize use and space. And then there's the harder news. Let's restructure certain roles. Let's think about reviewing all service lines. And I will tell you the department actually had a number of cuts that happened along this way as we were thinking about our margins as well. I want to zoom out for a second. I'm giving you all these numbers and details, but what is happening in healthcare as a country? I borrowed this slide from Liz, because I think it really says what's happening, because I think the environment has changed and the rules have changed. So prior to the pandemic, we, the physicians, we, the healthcare workers, were the good guys. We were doing the best that we could. Health systems were encouraged to be everything to everyone, take all that come your way, do your best. And policymakers understood that costs of care are escalating, but hey, we should make change slowly. Let's not rock the boat too much in terms of how we make that change happen. I don't have to tell you all that post-pandemic, We are no longer in that same era as providers. If you just look at healthcare worker violence claims and causes, those have increased dramatically. Our hospital systems tell us it's no longer personally, financially, or politically favorable for us to be everything to everyone. And our policymakers, as evidenced right here in Colorado, have had this rule of fix it or else, and if you don't fix it, we will. And that is where the year started for many of us. Now, when these changes happen and this turbulence happens, I look to our leadership for help and support as a beacon to guide us through these difficult times. But that too is turbulent. As many of you know, Dean Riley has announced that he will be retiring next calendar year. And I think Don Elliman said this best, in that we have had John as a leader here for the past 9 years, and we are far stronger by every measure because of him and his steady leadership. And I will tell you this is personal for me because I came here largely because of John, to work with him and to be under his tutelage. So financial challenges, challenges from policymakers, challenges in leadership, seems like a little bit of a bleak prognosis for things. But you know, I'm an internal optimist. I really believe that without change there is no opportunity, and I always look for bright spots. So let me share with you some of the bright spots this year that I saw happen here as well. The first is that we all came together. This is an op-ed in the Denver Post written by Don Elliman and John Riley, specifically calling out the fact that these two bills would be quote unquote catastrophic to our health system. These voices were unanimous. In fact, as you see there in the underlined phrase, every single clinical department chair signed on to support the fact that this legislation is a bad idea. In my short 2 years here, I have not seen that happen in terms of us coming together the way we did for this specific issue. We recognize as well that we need better ways of working together with our health system, right? Because these cuts target our hospital partners, but guess who they impact? They impact all of us. And so we created a new structure for oversight. This is called the Executive Advisory Council, or the EAC. It sits between the leaders in the School of Medicine, the leaders of UC Health, and there are 6 clinical department chairs in the middle, really thinking about how we share governance and how we share decision making. And yes, if you're curious, one of the 6 is medicine as well. And this is the first time where we come together and talk about what's happening on the system side, what's happening on the financial side, and how do we actually work together to solve some of these challenges. Many of my chair colleagues across the country are lamenting the fact that they're shrinking their footprints, that they're actually holding things back. We, on the other hand, are opening up new buildings and have new opportunities. Tower 3 is up and running, and in fact, just this week, I heard we're hiring architects now to open up all of the remaining shell space, and cardiovascular, oncology, and many of our services are already there, providing care that we need in this new building. And last but not least, a personal highlight for me was this. How many of you came to the Mentorship Academy? Many hands are up in the room. I would just say this to me was my shining star of the year. It was a huge success. Not only because all of you were there and were so energetic, but because I saw many of our clinical department chairs there for the full day, literally sucking up everything they could get out of this meeting. And so for me, the bright spots still outweigh all of the dark spots this past year. So that's the past. Let's focus on where we are today and what's happening now. And I'm going to focus my comments on 3 domains for this. So I'm going to talk about people and leaders. I'll talk about programs. I want to share with you some of the new developments in the department and priorities and work that we're doing to address those priorities. So let me begin with people and leaders, and I'll begin with a gentleman sitting here on my right, Dr. Eddie Stenium. All of you, I think, know Eddie, but Eddie was named Executive Vice Chair for the department this year. He's no stranger to CU. He has been a resident here and a chief resident here. He finished his ID fellowship at Emory and spent almost a decade at Intermountain Health as Senior Medical Director, overseeing many of those clinical services that he is involved with now. I think for most of the chiefs in this room, most of the folks that work with Eddie, you will say he has been an incredible asset to the organization. I've tasked him with many more responsibilities that are on this slide. He oversees clinical and faculty affairs. He's helped with ambulatory operations, transplant medicine integration, and in 2024, in January, Eddie will take over as the interim division head for infectious diseases as Dr. Pershla steps down from that role. So welcome, Eddie, as well. I am fortunate to have some of the best people on this campus around me in the form of department vice chairs. And here they are. Each of them have their own portfolio of work and focus. And I want to highlight Jimmy Lofton, who's on this slide as a vice chair. We elevated Jimmy to this role from DFA in large part because of the contributions he has made over the years as I've been here, but also in recognition of the incredible value he brings to the department. Jimmy is an MBA, a CPA. No one reads a spreadsheet better than he does, I will tell you. And he has been an incredible asset for me as we've started to think about all of the financial operations in the department as well. Some of these are new faces, and as they've taken on new work, we've realized we need more help. We also need to think about succession planning and how we grow people in this space. And so this year, I asked the department vice chairs to bring together associate vice chairs. So in education, we have Dr. Amiran Baduashvili, who helps Dr. Connors with the Clinical Scholars Program and a number of other initiatives. In research, we have Janine Higgins, and we also have two associate vice chairs, Dr. Mary Weiser Evans and Dr. Fernanda Holguin, who help with clinical and basic sciences research. Quality was way ahead of us already. They already had this structure. So we essentially have framed them that way. There's Dr. Vera Ponce, who oversees the Quality Council and Quality Initiatives, and Dr. Tyler Anstedt, who oversees GME Quality and Safety. And we brought on a new Associate Vice Chair for Faculty Development. That's Dr. Christine Jones. I know she's watching online from the VA. She is going to oversee mentorship and our launch teams, which I'll tell you about in just a second. Our department vice chairs, me, can't do anything without these people. These people are the place where the rubber hits the road, and I'm very fortunate to have an incredible team of administrative support around me. We have executive assistant support, we have research support, we're building our human resources bench, we're building our quality and analytics bench, and our finance and contracts team, I think, remains one of the best in all the departments here as well. We've gotten so big that we had to bring in a manager, and so Nokara Price, we stole her from UC Health, is now our office manager and helps coordinate this team to really think about how we do what we do and how we actually maximize impact for each individual person, not just from their job, but also from their potential in growth as well. I've been very focused on building bridges with our affiliates and our vice chairs. So here they are. Many of you have been at the VA. You know it's been a turbulent year at the VA for lots of reasons. I am happy to share with you that I think those days are behind us. We have a new chief of medicine coming to the VA, Dr. Kristen Hyland. Dr. Hyland is an endocrinologist. She trained at Duke and at Penn, and I think that pedigree should say what she sort of values the academic health system relationship as. We've had many conversations already, including many emails already, and I think the future is bright at the VA. I want to thank Dr. Brian Borg, who has stepped in as interim for this role. He really took on this very massive job at a very difficult time and has done an exceptional job actually managing things for us over there. Our partnership with National Jewish remains strong. Kevin Brown remains a trusted partner, and Dr. Paranjape, who I should be here somewhere, is actually there and has been there for about 6 months. And we have really focused on trying to build better bridges across our affiliates. And again, these are members of our department, they're members of our team. We need to think about how what we do here impacts what happens there as well. None of this happens without divisions and division heads. And I'm happy to see many in the room today. Thank you all for being here. The red rectangles are new faces. These are people that we've recruited just this year. So Dr. Larry Allen in cardiology, Dr. Jennifer Christie, who I see here in gastroenterology, and Dr. Whitney Goldner, who you may not yet know. She will be joining us as our chief of endocrinology in July from Nebraska. There's also some green rectangles. Those are folks who are in interim roles and have stepped up to help in the context of transitions in leadership. So Dr. Steve Dreskin, who's sitting back there, Dr. Eric Pershla, who's in Italy at the moment, enjoying the transition out of division leadership, I imagine, and Dr. Dave Badish is here as well, who've done admirable jobs in managing their divisions and their portfolios to date. And it's a great group of people to work with, I will add. Our divisions are supported by administrators, and we've also had transitions in administrators. So on the left, you'll see names of divisions and names of administrators. Those in red are new in their roles as of this year. So Kay Dendler in gastroenterology, Jacob Green in general internal medicine, and infectious disease, Darian Crosby joined the team as well as administrators. On the right, you'll see a lot of pictures. These are pictures of us really working to better connect our division administrators and build a culture and a community where we rely on each other. These are difficult jobs. These are people who are new in their roles. Our job is really to support them as best as we can. Support to me is a verb. So it's not just about meeting and talking, it's about doing. And so what I'm really proud to share is that this is our second year of our staff mentorship program. I see all of you looking and smiling because Cheryl Loud is in these pictures. She's sitting right here in the front. This was something we started 2 years ago because we recognized this was so important for us. And it's a highlight of my year. I go to the launch of these staff mentorship programs. Staff work with other staff to learn best practices and really grow together. And the energy in the room is incredible. So it's really fun to see this. So thank you to Cheryl and to Katie for being the champions of this for the Department of Medicine. We, this year, have recognized the need to elevate our staff for going above and beyond. And so new this year, we started Staff Elevation Awards. These awards, by the way, are submitted by supervisors or people in their work units, recognizing people that go above and beyond in their jobs. We get multiple applications for these awards. We do our best to pick the ones that we think are the most deserving. It's very hard sometimes, I will say. They get to meet me. I mean, talk about an honor, right? They get a certificate and they get a nice little gift card as well. Just a small way of saying thank you. And if nothing else, hopefully you feel that culture that we're trying to change here is that everyone matters. Our staff are often the invisible part of the department. We need to do better at recognizing them, and this is a small way of saying thank you for that as well. We are a big department. Every time I put the slide up, the numbers go one way and they go upwards. We are now almost 1,350 plus people who are regular faculty in the department. Don't ask me if I know everybody. I'm getting close. We're about 1,028 part-time faculty, which includes faculty at our affiliates. 305 of our colleagues are APP faculty in the Department of Medicine. We have almost 1,000 research and administrative staff and over 300 trainees in the Department of Medicine. We are a very large family. But I don't want you to get lost on the quantity piece because what we actually have in spades is quality. Let me tell you about the quality that we have in the department. This year, we had 70 promotions go through our annual cycle, the most of any department, the most of actually, I think, the Department of Medicine for many, many years. And I want to call out Stu Linus and Neda Rasuli, who are on the upper right of this. They do this work as committee chairs every year selflessly with their committees, reviewing dossiers, providing feedback, setting people up for success. We had 50 people move from the assistant to the associate professor role, 15 from associate to full, and then 5 awards of tenure. Pretty impressive. What's even more impressive is some of the achievements these people make along the way. I can go on for an hour telling you about these achievements. Let me highlight a couple. The first is this woman, Tanya Rais. Dr. Rais won the first NIH Director Pioneers Award at the entire School of Medicine, ever, this year. What is this award? It's an award that supports scientists with outstanding records of creativity who are pursuing new research and pioneering approaches in major challenges at the end of the day. How great is it that we have scientists in our department that are doing this kind of work recognized by the NIH director? It's not just the NIH. I think even locally, we are the envy of many departments. This year, we had 2 new CU distinguished professors in our midst, Dr. Gene Kuttner and Dr. Sean Colgan. CU Distinguished Professors are the highest award you can get at the University of Colorado. They are very competitive, and they are essentially individuals that have exemplary performance in multiple domains. It's incredible that we had not only 1, but 2, but here's the other part that's incredible. Across the department, we have 17 people who have achieved this award. That's more than 10% of the entire university here in the Department of Medicine. I mean, when we talk about quality, we have quality here in our department, no question about it. We are who we are because of people, but the people do the work in programs. So let me tell you a little bit about the programs in the department and things that we've changed this year. I'm going to begin with research because this is an area I've paid a lot of attention to over the years. We have 1,325 funded projects in the Department of Medicine. We are now over $450 million in total funding, including NIH and non-NIH sources. And the Blue Ridge rankings rank us as number 23 in the nation. There's about 230 departments of medicine in the country, so we're a top 10% department in the country. The research that we do here matters because it actually is elevated by our connections with our affiliates. This is where I go back to thinking about that relationship with our affiliate chiefs and chairs. Much of what we do here spans multiple sites. So at Denver Health, we have 20 PIs from the Department of Medicine doing 47 projects, bringing in about $11.5 million in funding. At the VA, 37 PIs, 110 active projects, and $12.5 million in funding. And of course, at National Jewish, 71 PIs from the Department of Medicine, almost 400 grants and contracts, and almost $100 million in funding. What's really impressive about this is that a lot of these folks span projects across sites. So our strength in research is that we're highly multidisciplinary, but we do research across multiple areas with multiple different populations seamlessly across most of our sites. And that is a key strength and unique part of our Department of Medicine. We have really thought about how we scale this up, right? How do we get bigger and better and better at becoming a top 10 Department of Medicine in the country? And I want to call out Janine Higgins, who's here, Mary and Fernando, who were tasked with their first big job, which was, let's rebuild our research strategic plan from the ground up. Now, many of you have seen this and heard about it at town halls. I'm going to walk you through it again, because again, repetition is key here. But the plan has 5 strategic pillars. The first one is to collate research resources. So things like post-award support, campus resource mapping, and our DOM research site. One place to go to find everything that you need. No more finding links or things that are broken along the way. That's number one. Number 2 is connection and networks. Research only happens when teams work together. How do we as a department foster those connections and those networks? So we have our Research Innovation Conference that's going to be revamped and rebooted. We are launching multidisciplinary team pilots. This is where if an MD, a PhD, and folks from different areas come together, we provide some pilot funding for those grants within the Department of Medicine. This is also recognizing our PRAs, who do a lot of work. They are, by the way, the highest turnover in the department happens here. And we need to do a better job of connecting and building those teams together so that we really think about retention as part of our growth opportunity for those individuals. Growth and development, we have to think about our junior folks. How do we think about grant writing workshops? We have division administrator trainings now that we're actually getting people skilled up to do this in divisions. We're building a repository for grant documents, so you don't have to recreate the environment or the resources. We have templates for that. And of course, more and more training workshops for specific calls, for specific programs, and for specific pilots. The area that got the most feedback is this. How do we directly financially support our researchers? We had something called the Research Intensive Faculty Program, or RIFP. That is sunsetting. We're moving to the Research Investment in the Scientific Enterprise, or RISE program. I'll tell you about that in just one second. We are also going back and actually mapping bridge funding to the School of Medicine. So if you get support from the school for a bridge, we match those dollars, dollar for dollar, so you get twice the support for a bridge from the Department of Medicine. And we're building a portal for support and grant requests, because as you can imagine, these are sometimes unequal. And having people have equal access to those aspects is important as well. And last but not least, we can do all of this. It doesn't work if you don't know about it. So we got to get better about how we communicate. And so part of the plan is strategic communications, not flooding your email inbox with more emails. Trust me, I've been there, I've done that. Really being strategic about here's what's new, here's what may matter to you as well. 5 pillars of work and significant investment. How much is this investment? Here's what it looks like. The green bar is the direct investment in our direct financial support. That's about $1.3 million from the Department of Medicine. And you can see pretty sizable chunks of investment in things like connections, growth and development, and research resources. Why? Because we need to be a top 10 Department of Medicine, and with this voltage, with this fuel, I think we can get people more connected, but also have people get the resources they need to be able to execute. Let me take a second and talk about RISE, because this is the most important piece of this. I think the crowning jewel, if you like. RISE is a way of giving PIs dollars for the work that they do in terms of grants. It's additional funding. Our old model was very complicated, so my ask to Janine and the vice chairs was simplify this. So this is the simplified model. How it works is we look at your direct costs for all of your eligible awards. So let's say you have one R01 with your direct cost between $250,000 to $500,000. The department puts in $10,000 to support you, the divisions put in $10,000 to support you, and the PI or the MPIs get $20,000 on top of their grants to be able to use funds for additional support. That's about 10% salary support if you use it for salary on top of your existing grants. If you've got $500,000 to $1 million, so typically it's in the 2 R01 range, you're now talking about doubling those numbers. So 20,000 from the department, 20,000 from the division, about 20% salary support. And if you've got over $1 million, then that number goes up to 25%. The fine print at the bottom is really important, so let me highlight that. Number one, this now applies to all faculty in the Department of Medicine. It is no longer an Anschutz only plan. It applies to you if you're at the Denver Health, if you're at National Jewish, or you're at the VA. And let me be clear, not a dollar of that comes back to the department. It's the right thing to do. We should be encouraging research across all of our sites, so these are investments that we make knowing that those investments are going to our faculty for the right reasons, not expecting ROI on that. Number two, we've included multiple different funding streams. So this includes the DoD, the VA, society, foundations. As long as you have an RP or U equivalent grant, you get support from this mechanism. Number three, no FTE requirements. So the old model used to have all of this, if you're this much FTE, you get that much percentage. Gone. As long as you're a member of the Department of Medicine, you get to participate in this plan. And last, this is not just salary support. So these funds come to you. You can use them for salary support. You can also use them for your postdocs, use them for your mentees, use them for your labs, use them as you see well according to CU financial policies. A couple of things I want to say about this before I move on. Number one, I really like this structure. I think it puts dollars back where they belong, which is in the pockets of researchers to do excellent work, and we recognize that as well. Number two, this is the start. I would like to be able to increase these dollar values. I don't think we'll ever get to the basic science department level where we have 50% salary support coming from the department, but boy, I'd like to get close. So this is where I think diversifying our funding flows comes in terms of thinking about philanthropy. And number three, there are still some gaps. We have to think about our junior faculty, to think about those that are going to get their K awards and those critical years. And those are things we have to work on moving forward as well. So RISE, I think, is a step in the right direction. It really moves us forward from a Department of Medicine research perspective. I want to talk about quality next. Michael Ho is here in the room, our Vice Chair for Quality. This year, we made a little change to the Quality Council. We actually provided hardwired support to each of the members doing the work in quality. So every division has a representative. You'll see them here. They own their division's quality work. They work together as a group to skill each other up and think about cross-disciplinary work in quality. And they are supported by an excellent team of vice chairs and staff that you see listed here as well. I asked Mike to send me highlights of the year for quality. Mike sent me 2 slides, but they were like 4-point font on every slide. So there was a lot of things to go through. So I'm just going to give you the highlights of quality this year. There are just many quality accomplishments. We have the most collaborative case reviews of any department here on campus. These are reviews where we look at problems, we form solutions, and then we implement across the system. And it is really a way of changing care very quickly because of the work we do. We've had 7 Shark Tank QI competitions, so 7 years. We funded over 31 projects along the way. And we have a pipeline. We have a Leaders in Quality and Safety Fellowship, or LINCS. This year we have 15 fellows. There are 25 graduates to date, and I bet you if you look across the campus and beyond at who's doing quality work, they probably came through LINCS along the way. So many of them go on to do incredible things in quality and safety. We're a clinical department, so how are we doing clinically? We're doing very well. The numbers keep turning upwards. This is data looking specifically at the past 6 years. So you'll see in 2023, our outpatient encounters almost hit 710,000, 701,000 to be clear. Our inpatient discharges similarly trend upwards. And what will happen next year when Tower 3 opens is I think you're going to see a sharp uptick in 2024 in terms of where we are for discharges as well. All of this creates revenue for the department. I think you should know how we spend the money that we earn. So here's how the department spends its money. We have an operating budget every year, about $15 million in the Department of Medicine. About half of that, a little less than half of that, goes back to the divisions in the Department of Medicine for things like retentions, recruitments, startup packages, make-wholes. This year, that slice of the pie has increased because of challenges with our funding and our funds flow models. About $4 million, a little bit more than $4 million, goes back to the department to support our vice chairs, to support the staff, to support recruitments. We spent about $2.2 million in education. That's on top of the state salary, the state dollars that come, which aren't very good, but they're there. And about $1.7 million, as you saw, in research, and about $1 million in signature programs, including PAGE, Weldom, DREAM, and OECSP. Jimmy's going to hate me for saying this, but I will say it publicly. I don't care what our margin is. I care about putting money back into programs and building things. We're not a piggy bank. I don't want to be a piggy bank. I want to spend the funds to do great things while we're here. So as you look at this pie chart, really start asking, what else could we be doing? Because that's what I keep asking our team. What else can we support? How do we support it at the end of the day? But this makes me feel good. I think we're putting money in the right buckets, and we certainly have room to grow some of these numbers as well. Okay, people, programs, let's talk about priorities and where things are. I'm going to focus on 4 things: diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice. Our work on salary equity to date, which I'm particularly proud of. Our work in wellness, and our work and accomplishments in education. I could do 1-hour talks on each of these, by the way. So let me focus on the highlights for each of them. And I'll begin with diversity, equity, and inclusion. The highlight this year was the fact that we launched these pilot programs with the clear mission of supporting work in DEI&J among our local community to inspire change in academic medicine and patient care. When we launched these, I wasn't sure if we would get applications. They're not very big budgets. The idea was to stimulate interest in work, and I was blown away by what happened next. 7 unique divisions submitted grants, and it actually wasn't even faculty. It was a lot of staff and fellows and trainees submitting grants, which was incredible. We had a total of 11 submissions that came through, and we had 11 reviewers who signed up very quickly to review these grants as well. An announcement went out a couple of weeks ago about these. Let me just share the funded applications with you. We funded about half of the applications. That is much better than the NIH, I have to say. But pay attention to the types of projects that this is supporting. We have work happening on creating communities for LGBTQ plus members of our department. We have work happening on end-of-life conversations among those that don't speak English as their native language. We're thinking about how do we recruit people for clinical trials with those barriers there as well. And we're focusing on education aspects as it relates across DE&I. I have to tell you, I am not only blown away, I am so encouraged by this because I'm dying to see the results of these projects, and I'm looking forward to supporting this even more in the years ahead, because these are the types of projects that we should be funding and supporting in the department. And look at that funding rate, it's not too bad. So if you haven't submitted yet, look for the call next year. There's a 50-50 chance you might get funded if things continue. I mentioned salary equity. Most of you who've been here longer than I have know this has been a problem and an issue in the department. There's been a lot of work that's happened before my coming here. 2 years ago, we decided to use data as our true north to drive this, and so we created this dashboard to look at salaries across the Department of Medicine. Every year, we go through salary adjustments, and in the past, I would get a very big spreadsheet with lots of names, lots of numbers, and it'd be very hard to look at 1,356 faculty and whether or not we're truly equitable. I don't care how good you are with spreadsheets, not even Jimmy can do this at the end of the day. And so we then created this dashboard where divisions look at the dashboard to make adjustments. We look at the dashboard independently to make our own adjustments and how we think things should flow. We tally the two together, and then we meet with every division to go through why are we making the changes we're making at the end of the day. This is what it looks like. Just to give you a sense, those blue dots are men, those pink are women. You see that we have a split out by gender, we have a split out by rank, by salary distribution. We can even drill down into what sections they're in, what divisions they're in, what rank they're at, whether they're in the community or not, because there's different salary scales for those individuals, whether they're MDs or PhDs, et cetera, et cetera. It is a very powerful tool and an example of how data can improve practice. What's happened in 2 years of doing this? Let me share with you some results. In 2 cycles of doing this, the average gap between men and women has decreased by 40%. It's pretty impressive for 2 years of this work. It's not just the clinicians. This has also been seen in the research faculty, where the gap has decreased by 38%. We started this work in 2017 with BRIM and a number of other programs. No other 2 years have had this degree of change since this dashboard has been instituted. So we could break out the bubbly and say, wow, look at this, right? This is great. I'm not quite satisfied yet because we are more equitable, but there are still gaps that remain. So I've asked my team to look deeper as to why these gaps remain, and one of the key signals that's come up is years in rank. So as a reminder, every year you're here, your salary gets readjusted, you get cost of living adjustments, and the longer you stay, the upwards your salary goes. When you look at years in rank by gender, you'll see a big delta. Men have about 5.91 years in rank versus women who have about 3.89. And if you do the math and you say, okay, let's give them the bare minimum they might get for those years, you see that gap starts to narrow very quickly. So Yes, I know we're amazing. I don't want this to be a down moment. It's not a down moment. We've done a lot of work here, but I still think we have work to do. For example, there are 3 questions that I want to answer and hopefully have answers for you next year. First and foremost, why do we have those gaps in years and rank? What's driving that? There's plenty of empirical data out there about the fact that we've lost more female faculty than male faculty in the years during COVID. No questions about it, not just here, across the nation. Is that happening here? Yes or no, and if yes, what are we doing about it? So that's question number 2. And number 3 is what are we doing about retention and promotions along the way? Do we have inequities in that may be accounting for these gaps? These are very difficult questions to ask. They're never comfortable conversations, but I really think we have to start asking these questions. So next year, when I come back here, I'm going to have some answers for you as to what's driving some of this as well. I'm going to flip gears quickly to wellness to make everyone feel happy again. This is Katie Morrison, and really Weldom is a shining star in the Department of Medicine. But I also want to zoom out for a second that when I think about wellness, it's not just about Weldom and the many programs that we do in wellness. This year's big signature program was Valuing Each Other. I'll tell you about that. And there's many other programs, including Weldom at the Table, Ballant, a number of things we do on the Wellness Cart, which I've been on multiple times. We do a lot of things around programs. But programs is not enough for wellness. It's really about everything else that underlies that, the culture of the environment, the organization. How do we care for people in the Department of Medicine? That's one of the reasons why I brought on this Vice Chair for Faculty Development and Mentorship role, to really think about how do we promote our people and make things easier for them to rise in the academic ladder. This is why I brought on our research leadership team to think about how do we actually redesign the DOM Research Office to support, nurture, and cultivate some of the work that's happening across research. This is why we launched the staff mentorship program, right? This is all wellness in action at the end of the day. I mentioned Valuing Each Other. This was our big program this year that Katie and her team led. Why did we do this? Because when you look at exit surveys of why people leave the department, a common theme we saw was that people did not feel valued by their supervisor. There's some comments in there about even things like no one even noticed if I was here or not. And those are pretty hard to read at the end of the day. So we wanted to create common language and a knowledge base to build skills around valuing our faculty and staff. And of course, because when we're the Department of Medicine, we don't do things small, we go big. So we did this across the entire department, division by division, leaders and staff as well. Katie knows that I'm a data guy, and it's great that we do this to make people feel well, but I always ask Katie, how do we know we're making a difference? So she's been measuring this as well. This is data from some of the surveys that she's been doing after the actual workshops. Remember, we had a lecture for leadership and a lecture for the workshop attendees. Not shabby in terms of response rates, lots of hundreds there as well. And I'm really pleased to see this, that when we ask folks, are you using these techniques, such as appreciating colleagues more often, trying to appreciate folks in the ways they prefer, using when I saw this in that moment, I felt that way, the situation, behavior, impact framework. And God forbid you appreciate your leaders more often. It's nice to see that that is also taking up some traction. I think the quantitative data is great, but I want to actually share a quote because Katie's also collecting qualitative data. I don't know who this person was, but I think it sends the right signal in terms of what I would have hoped for this program, which is that even having this workshop, something the Department of Medicine is saying that this is important, it's something we need to focus on, we're going to dedicate time and resources to it, that this was even made available, was something that we were encouraged to go to by our leaders, helps in setting a culture and expectation that we need to be doing more of this. And it's something that we're going to value and set expectations around. I don't know who you are who said this. This was great to read. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that, because this is exactly the purpose of this program. Education, this man here sitting in the front seat has made our programs truly thrive. And if I were to tell him that, he'd say it's not me, it's the team. And we have an incredible team of leaders in education. You'll see our program director, our associate and assistant program directors, and our PSTP director. And don't take my word for it in terms of education. Take the word of the residents who actually will tell you how they feel about your programs. So every year, the ACGME conducts surveys of their residents. These are, by the way, blinded surveys, so we don't know who they are. And it's sort of a free-for-all. They could say whatever they want about their residency programs. This is 2021 and 2022. This is 22 and 23. And consistently, year after year, we rank higher than the national average in terms of their program experience. Why does this matter? I'm looking at the chiefs in this room. It matters because these folks go back and tell their friends that Colorado is special. This is where you want to come to train. This is why we attract trainees from across the nation. This is a heat map, so the colors that are darker there means more trainees. And there's still a few gray spots that Dr. Connors and I have talked about, but our trainees, our graduates, are our best ambassadors. This is why when you see who we're bringing here in terms of underrepresented in medicine in our intern class year after year, in an era of SCOTUS and all of the things that are happening in the country, we continue to tick upwards. Nearly 1 in 4 of our new intern classes identifies as being underrepresented in medicine. Think about that for a second. We're in Colorado. That's pretty impressive in terms of who we're training at the end of the day. Why is that happening? It's happening because we are thinking about how we train people very intently. So the residency program has a novel curriculum. They recognize that some of us are going to become advocates, we're going to become scholars, we're going to be clinicians, we're going to be leaders. We can't have a one-size-fits-all for everyone in residency. We need to create directed pathways to allow for these phenotypes to emerge. So we now have dedicated time for folks to do QI, scholarship, outpatient medicine exposure. We have pathways for different aspects of this: medical education, leadership, health policy, and global health. And the best part is these guys get to go to other places and tell them how we're doing it, because everyone says, what's happening in Colorado? How are you able to pull this off? They continue to innovate. I get no shortage of requests for, take a look at this. Wouldn't this be great to fund at the end of the day? All good. One example is our AIR fellowships. These are actually ACGME and ABIM designed programs, really designed to build sort of crossroads between specialties that need support, pipeline issues, but specialties that also can bridge that along the way. So we have 2 AIRs now that are thriving. The first is our community-based hospice and palliative medicine AIR. This is a tremendous success that started with Amos Bailey back in the day, and it's now taken off. And we're starting cardiology and EP. And if you think about other specialties that have pipeline problems, rheumatology, endocrinology, infectious diseases, think about AIRs and how we can build some of those together to bring more individuals to those pipelines. So my prediction for you is we'll see more AIRs in the department in the near future. It really helps solve a critical problem of ours. Okay, 43 minutes. I've given you the rundown of where we are. Let me tell you about the future, because there's a lot coming our way. So the future to me is like being on a journey in a plane, and I'm looking ahead and I'm seeing a lot of headwind coming our way. What are those headwinds? You already know about our political climate. The battle is not ended. We're going to have to face this again in the upcoming cycle once the House reconvenes as well. You know about NIH funding lines better than I do. These continue to drop. And even when you get funded, they cut your budget back, right? So it's a double whammy at the end of the day. You know our state education support is anemic. It now needs massive blood transfusions, if you ask me. It really is a sorry state of affairs in terms of supporting education in the state of Colorado. I started off with the financial margins. Our clinical margins continue to go downwards. And you know that we've had some challenges with our affiliates and support along the way. That's a lot of headwind coming our way. And while it might be easy to feel defeated, I actually look at this and I say, you know what? It's time to be that different plane. It's time to be the plane on the left. Be that plane to think differently. And it's not just me that's saying that. I think a lot of our leaders on campus are saying that. For example, we are launching our search for our new dean. This is the position specification. If you're interested in applying, this is what it looks like. Dean searches, for those of you who know, take a long time. There are often many large committees. They're not very agile and very nimble. And this is where Don Elliman said, none of that's going to happen. We're going to think differently. So the search committee is here. There are 7 members of the search committee. 7. It's the smallest committee I've seen for any search in recent times. And I want to highlight the names in blue. Those are all members of the Department of Medicine. So 3 of the 7 faculty members looking for our next leader on campus come from this group. And I think this is testament to the importance medicine has to the future of this campus at the end of the day. I would love to tell you we have a lot of time to do this. Don is also innovating here as well, and we are to give him names within 6 months. It's going to be busy. But talk about exciting. and headwinds, right? We have the ability here to find a new pilot for this plane. We have to think about our academic support models. It's been a very challenging year negotiating with our hospital partners and really thinking about support. We are now revamping and blowing that all up, and specifically focusing on how do we standardize our clinical effort and our productivity benchmarks so that we're looking at data. It's not emotional anymore, it's about numbers, it's black and white. How do we find support for academic missions? So not that we're borrowing and stealing from left and right, but we actually have hardwired support for research, education, and innovation. If we truly are to be a top 10 academic medical center, we need to start putting money behind these missions. And how do we do this so that it's transparent and modular? No more, hey, I know you, you know me, hook me up, I'll help you out, right? How do we actually make this much more of a just system without any of that? I like these because I think this is going to lead to consistent methods, which we've not had on this campus. It's going to get rid of the old books of business, no more side deals or existing contracts, and I hope it'll bring the School of Medicine and the hospital closer together. This is the one area where we have the most disagreements, and this is the one area, if done right, I think we can make tremendous progress. Now, we've done this before, or we've tried to do it before amongst ourselves. It's not been very successful. So this year, we're innovating. We're bringing this company called Chartis down to help us with this process. Some of you know what Chartis is. They're a very large consultancy group. They go from site to site and help with these types of relationships and contracts. And when I say go from site to site, I'm not kidding. These are all of the health systems where Chartis has actually gone in and done things like funds flow agreements, things like compensation metrics, et cetera, et cetera. Many of them look like us. The school, the faculty group practice, the faculty, the clinical programs, the system are separate. And so they're coming at this with a lot of intelligence and a lot of experience to hopefully help us as well. I would love to tell you this work is coming in the future. Actually, it started already. So there's now a steering committee that includes senior leadership from the health system and CU Medicine. That steering committee has multiple members from the Department of Medicine, FYI. The work is actually broken down into 3 subgroups. There's project sponsors, there's a funds flow redesign work group. These are the people that actually work through all the numbers and think about how to do this. And then there's other key stakeholders as well. Not only has it started, it's a very ambitious timeline for work. So Chartis is here. We've been having multiple meetings. They're looking at doing their problem definition and current state right now. In the next several days, we will start to develop newer models of how we do this. Really linking pieces together. And by the middle of February, or proposed middle of February, we will start to put these models into place. That alarms me a little bit. It's a lot of change in a very rapid succession, but I want to tell you that I think we're ready. The DOM has been expecting this. This is something I came in with understanding, which is where we're going to be going. And so we've built a lot of data around this. This is our clinical effort and RVU dashboard, just a screenshot. This is fake data, it's not real data. But what this shows you is that every clinician who has clinical FTE can now go in and look at what their profit statement is, how much money they're bringing in, more transparency, what their costs are, what is their calculated effort clinically versus their supposed effort, where are they on their productivity, and what does that look like from a detailed expense perspective. Division heads and division chiefs can roll this up across their entire division, so they can look at it by clinician, by section, by area. And department leadership can look at this as well to understand where we are at the end of the day. No more, I think this, I saw that, this person's not doing this, they checked out a clinic early, none of that, right? This is now the true north. Numbers matter, and these are numbers that we will look at together. It's not only that, it's also the organization of the clinical workspace, and again, we are ready. This is work that Rick Albert and I started many years ago. This is now work that's included hospital partners, Jimmy, Amy Barley, Mike Ho, Eddie. We've been really thinking about things like our clinic access metrics. How do we make this work? Our policy, we have a standardized policy now on clinic expectations, and we have standardized templates for job offers that define work expectations very clearly. So we're ahead, I think, to be able to adopt this new model, this new way of doing business as well. The other thing I think about a lot at night is that clinical margins are decreasing. Our expenses continue to go up. Our opportunities to grow go up. How do we diversify our portfolio? I met with our financial advisors a couple of months ago, and this is what all they talk about, is volatility, and how do you survive volatility? And I think about it now a lot as chair of a department running a multi-million-dollar business, which is what the Department of Medicine is, right? So how do we diversify our portfolio? My big thing is focusing on philanthropy. It has always been an area where I think we can do better. Denver is actually a very giving community and a very giving culture. And I want to share with you why this matters so much with just a few success stories this year. The first is this one. This is Dr. Rob Quaife. Rob received a $30 million gift to support advanced cardiac imaging in the Department of Medicine this year. $30 million that goes for new fellowship programs, new training opportunities, new faculty recruitment, new hiring of staff, new equipment. Right? It's rocket fuel to be able to do some pretty incredible things. The other gift I want to highlight is a gentleman sitting over here, Dr. Sachin Wani, who received $20 million from Paul and Katie Rady, patients that he cared for and their family, to set up a new center for esophageal and gastric cancer. Sachin is already recruiting scientists. He's building new programs. He's launching new educational venues. And this is work that's happening because of philanthropy today in the Department of Medicine. Doesn't just stop there. There are many other examples that I could give you. Here's a few more. Breland Wilkie, who received an endowed chair in sarcoma research for the work that she's doing there. Wendy Zoe in cardiology, who received a very nice gift from the Sturm Family Foundation for cardiac EP programs. Beth Tamburini in GI, who's received years and years of support for her work in liver disease research. And Joyce Lee, who's now receiving support from pharma companies for her work as well. Not grants, gifts. Support for the work that they're currently doing. This is going to be really important for us in the Department of Medicine, and this is why we are creating a new role in the department called the Director of Philanthropy. We're actively recruiting for this person right now. This is the person who will review our existing chairs, think about how we get new gifts and new support for those, liaise with our advancement officers at CU Foundation, really think about partnering with divisions and faculty on potential grateful patients and opportunities, and aligning us better with campus-wide initiatives. We're in the middle of interviews. Stay tuned. I hope to have good news very soon on this position. It's a key position for us as I think about diversifying our portfolio. The other thing I think about is how do we innovate better in the Department of Medicine. There's been some incredible success stories here from our faculty. Mike Hollers, who started a company called Q32 Bio, just received funding from a company called Homology. They have merged. They're actually on the NASDAQ now, believe it or not. And they are actually doing first-in-human trials of a number of cool molecules that they developed with NIH funding that are now going to market in human phase trials to study rare diseases. This isn't the only example. Clay Smith as well, who took OncoVerity, this idea of precision-targeted therapies in leukemia, and actually received Series A funding from argenx to really think about ongoing studies of these molecules as well. This is happening in the department today. We need to think about how we can encourage and build on this even more as we go forward. The other thing that I'm really excited to share with you about is this man, Mike Bonaca. So I don't know if you know Mark. Mark actually is a cardiologist. He sits in this environment called CPC, which is an academic research organization. And what they do is they get hired by companies to run large-scale clinical trials. And when I say large-scale, I'm not talking small. I'm talking countries, nations, thousands of patients. This is just one slide of the current trials they're recruiting for. That's the number of patients that they're recruiting. They are cheaper, faster, more efficient than the TIMI group, than DCRI, than many of the big groups in the country. And it's not just about running operations and trial design. Look at the impact they're having. These are all papers just this year, 57 publications from this group just this year. And not shabby environments either, right? A lot of great work here, and we need to do better in the department, I think, of really thinking about how to innovate in this space so that it's not just about individual faculty. There's a pathway for people to start working in this direction. Last but not least, you know how much I believe in the biggest asset we have is our people. We need to continue to invest in our people. So a couple of things that we're doing in the next year. Who wants simplified promotions? Yeah, trust me, I went through this when I got here. I know the pain of this promotion. So this year, we're launching a new process for the mid-year review, mid-clinical review. The mid-cycle review process actually is now going to be a portal like this. We're working with the School of Medicine, and Sunita and Steve have designed this, where everyone who's due for a mid-cycle review gets an email and says, you've been selected. Click here, log in. People will look at this and say, what the hell is the mid-cycle review? I have no idea. You can click on, learn about it. It walks you through a timeline, tells you exactly what to expect, what you need to do versus what the department and your division needs to do, laid out in a very simple way, and of course, resources. So don't know how to write a narrative? Here's a couple of templates. Don't know how to think about references? Here's some ideas for you at the end of the day. Don't know what a promotion matrix looks like? Look at some of these over here as well. Like, make the right thing to do the easy thing to do for our faculty, right? This is going to launch very soon, and I'm very excited about it. I think it'll be a game changer in many ways. The other thing I'm very excited about is what Christine Jones is leading, and this is something called launch teams. So when faculty come to see you and say, hey, who do I meet? How do I network? Who do I find for mentorship and support? It's often serendipitous, right? You either run into the right people or you take the initiative. We can't leave it to chance. It's the most important thing we do. So launch teams are going to be built around new faculty who start. They'll have a faculty facilitator. They'll have a division chief or designee. If you're going to recruit them, you need to mentor and support them, is my philosophy. They'll have a senior faculty member within a division, and they'll have senior faculty outside the division, a safe space to be able to have a conversation if things aren't going well. We're launching this next year. We'll pilot it with a few divisions before we start. But this is what it looks like. 4 meetings, 1 every quarter, with these individuals at the table. Meeting 1, really thinking about what is your why? What drives you? Meeting 2 and 3, speciating, clinical, research. What does that look like? How do we actually evolve that? And then meeting 4 is developing your team so that you are ready to launch at the end of the day. This starts very soon, and we'll pilot it, we'll work out the kinks, and hopefully have it at scale department-wide as well. I'm very excited about this, by the way. I will be on launch teams, so I will hopefully see some of you there as well. Last but not least, 1 in every 4 members of our department is now APPs, is an APP member. And if you ask yourself what we do for APPs, I would probably say we have room for improvement there. So this year, we're going to look for a new leader in the department, an associate vice chair for faculty development, specifically around APP mentorship and support. And as you know, this is a very different path for advanced practice providers. They often need very different skills, very different skill sets. So this will have a unique and designed curriculum for them and support for them as we think about elevating them in the academic ladder as well. If I were to show you a pyramid of where our APPs sit on rank, it is very bottom heavy. Very few people climb up that pyramid. And very few people have the incentive or the know-how to climb up that pyramid. That's a shame for 25% of our department. So we're going to try to fix that in the next year as well. And last but not least is how do we recognize the clinicians that do all of the great work that we do every single day? We launched this program idea last year, got some philanthropic support for it as well, and I am delighted to share with you for the first time the best clinicians amongst us. And so here they are. Lots of faces, hopefully many you recognize. I see some smiles along the way. Later today, an announcement will go out with more details about these individuals. These are the best of the best, and I'm delighted that we could acknowledge them and honor them in this way. So I'll end here. A couple of quick summary points. Several challenges came our way this year. I think more will lie ahead. I want you to know that I think we are ready for these challenges because we have invested in the right resource, which is our people, our programs, and our priority areas. There are more changes coming. I feel very good about these. We're ready and we are prepared. And the state of our department, I think, is extremely strong. All of you who know me know I love quotes, so I'll end with this one from Mahatma Gandhi, someone who I'm very proud to say is from my country. Gandhi said, "The future depends on what you do today." And I would say if you think about that quote and think about what we're doing today, we're in pretty good shape. So onwards we go. Thanks very much. We have a few minutes for questions. Happy to take them.
Questions for Dr. Chopra? Yeah, 20 seconds to run out, so I think we're good.
Sounds good. I'll stick around here for a little bit. Yeah. Thanks very much.